Welcome back to Law Decode with M. Today we are not just discussing a statute, we're discussing a structural economic reform that changed India's credit system. Yes, from 2016 to 2026, 10 years of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Has it worked? Has it achieved something? Let's break this down clearly. Before 2016, recovery laws were scattered, like we had SARFAESI, DRT Act, SICA. There was no single time-bound insolvency framework. By 2015, gross NPAs of banks had sharply increased, corporate defaults were mounting, recovery timelines were unpredictable. That's when IBC was introduced as a creditor in control, time-bound resolution mechanism, with the objective stating maximizing value of assets, improving the availability of credit, and balancing the interest of the stakeholders. Now, this is important. As reflected in the recent economic survey, more than 7,000 plus cases of CARP was admitted since its inception. Thousands of cases were closed through resolution, liquidation, withdrawal. Realization and resolved cases has often exceeded the liquidation value. One major structural impact was credit discipline was improved. Pre-IBC settlements were increased. That is, many cases get resolved even before admission. The Economic Survey of 2025-26 particularly highlighted that IBC has strengthened capital recycling. It has contributed to cleaning the bank balance sheets post the NPA crisis. The survey also acknowledges delays and capacity constraints. Now, interestingly, the February 2026 Union Budget did not propose a radical overhaul of the IBC. And that is important. When a law is no longer being constantly amended, it means it has stabilized. The budget focused on strengthening NCLT infrastructure, faster disposal mechanisms of cases, digitization and case management reforms, and also improving MSME insolvency and pre-pack framework. Policy message is very clear here. IBC is now institutionalized. Now I'll keep this crisp because detailed case laws will be a separate video. In Innovative Industries vs ICICI Bank, Supreme Court held that if debt exists and default is established, NCLT must admit. This judgment made IBC default driven. In Swiss Ribbons vs Union of India, the court upheld IBC. It clarified that IBC is primarily for resolution and not for liquidation. The objective is revival of the corporate debtor. So this judgment gave legitimacy and constitutional backing. In SR Steel case, the Supreme Court protected the commercial wisdom of COC. The court held NCLT cannot interfere with the commercial wisdom of the Committee of Creditors. This strengthened creditor autonomy and reduced over interference. Very recently, in Par and Trust versus Bhuvan Madan, the Supreme Court clarified again at the admission stage under Section 7 of IBC, NCLT only examines whether financial debt exists, whether default has occurred or not. The tribunal does not evaluate the corporate debtor's ability to pay or its future viability. So, this reaffirms that insolvency begins with default and not with economic viability assessment. So, what has IBC achieved in 10 years from 2016 to 2026? There has been a shift from debtor control to creditor control, increased settlement culture, time bound framework has been introduced, improved recovery ecosystem, but challenges remain. Delays beyond statutory timelines, capacity constraints in tribunals across the country, haircut concerns in certain cases, which means the next decade must focus on speed, predictability, and reducing the procedural friction. So that's the full picture of IBC's evolution from 2016 to 2026. If this breakdown helped you connect the dots between policy, goals, and economics, let me know by hitting a like. Subscribe to Law Decode with M if you want deeper case by case explanations or if you're serious about understanding how commercial law works in practice.